September 1998, the small town of Riverside Falls, Montana, population 847, receives national attention when FBI agent Sarah Martinez arrives to investigate the disappearance of investigative journalist Thomas Reed, who was researching a story about the town. Reed had been staying at the local inn for 3 weeks, interviewing residents, taking notes. Then one morning he simply vanished. His car still parked outside, his belongings still in his room. Laptop open with half-written article on screen. The last line he typed reads, "They all know something. Every single person in this town is hiding the same secret." Agent Martinez questions the innkeeper Margaret Walsh, who claims Reed checked out early that morning saying he was driving to the next town, but his car is still here, his belongings untouched. Margaret changes her story, says maybe he got a ride, maybe he called someone. Her answers are vague and nervous. Martinez notices something. Every person she tries to interview has the same reaction. They're polite but unhelpful, friendly but evasive. It's as if the entire town rehearsed what to say. Nobody saw anything. Nobody knows anything. Nobody wants to talk about Thomas Reed. Martinez searches Reed's room and finds his research notes. He was investigating the death of a teenage girl named Emma Harrison, who died in 1995, officially ruled an accidental drowning in the river that runs through town. But Reed's notes suggest he believed it was murder. He had interviewed dozens of residents, spoken to Emma's family, reviewed police reports. His notes contain a list of names, 37 people, all Riverside Falls residents. Next to many names he had written question marks, and at the bottom of one page a single sentence, "They killed her together, all of them." Emma Harrison was 16 years old when she died, popular student, good grades, artistic, planning to leave Riverside Falls for art school in Seattle. The police report says she went swimming alone at night and drowned. Her body found the next morning by fishermen. No signs of foul play, no investigation. Case closed. But Martinez finds discrepancies. The coroner's report mentions bruising inconsistent with drowning. Emma's diary, recovered from her room, mentions being afraid of someone. Entries about secrets she discovered. The last entry, dated the day before her death, reads, "I know what they did, and I'm going to tell everyone." Martinez interviews Emma's parents, David and Susan Harrison, who still live in Riverside Falls. They seem haunted, broken by grief even 3 years later. David says they accepted the drowning explanation because that's what the police told them. Susan starts to cry, says Emma was scared in her final weeks, acting strange, but they didn't push her to talk about it. Martinez asks if they believe it was an accident. David and Susan exchange a long look. Susan whispers, "We don't know what to believe anymore, this town. It's not what it seems. But if we say anything..." She stops. David finishes, "We still have to live here." The FBI brings in a team to investigate Thomas Reed's disappearance. They search the town, question residents, analyze phone records. Everyone cooperates superficially but reveals nothing useful. It's like hitting a wall of polite silence. Then a break comes from an unexpected source. A 14-year-old boy named Michael Porter approaches Martinez late one night. He's terrified, says his parents will punish him if they know he's talking. He tells her, "Mr. Reed asked me questions about Emma. I told him things I wasn't supposed to tell anyone. The next day he disappeared. I'm scared I'm going to disappear too." Michael reveals that Emma discovered something terrible about Riverside Falls. There's an old mining company that operated from 1960 to 1985, Riverside Mining Corporation. It employed most of the town, provided good wages, built the school, funded the hospital, but it was also illegally dumping toxic waste into the river for decades. Emma had been researching local history for a school project. She found documents, took photographs. She was going to expose the contamination that had poisoned the town's water supply, caused cancers, birth defects, illnesses. The company had paid town leaders to keep silent, and 30 years later, those leaders were still covering it up. Martinez investigates Riverside Mining Corporation, finds it closed in 1985 when EPA regulations made their operations too expensive. But before closing, they paid a $10 million settlement to 37 Riverside Falls residents, the same 37 names on Thomas Reed's list. These residents agreed to never speak about the contamination, signed legal documents with severe penalties for disclosure. They took the money, stayed silent, and let their neighbors continue drinking poisoned water. Emma Harrison had discovered this conspiracy. She was going to make it public, expose the people who sold out their own community. The investigation reveals that when Emma threatened to reveal the truth, the 37 people who had taken the settlement money panicked. They had built their lives on that money, businesses, homes, their children's educations. If Emma exposed them, they would face lawsuits, criminal charges, community hatred, so they made a collective decision. On the night of September 14, 1995, they lured Emma to the river. They held a meeting, all 37, and they voted. 28 voted yes, 9 voted no, but 9 wasn't enough. Emma Harrison was murdered by a community that chose money over conscience. Martinez brings in forensic teams to search the river area using 1998 technology. They examine the location where Emma's body was found. Ground-penetrating radar reveals disturbed earth near the riverbank. They excavate and find Emma's backpack buried 6 feet down. Inside are waterproof bags containing documents, photographs of illegal dump sites, copies of financial records, letters between mining company executives and town officials, everything Emma had collected. This is evidence of the conspiracy. But more importantly, it's evidence her death wasn't an accident. Someone buried this evidence after she died. With proof that Emma was murdered and evidence of a cover-up, Martinez begins arresting the 37 conspirators. One by one they're brought in, separated, interrogated. The wall of silence starts to crack. The first to break is Carol Stevens, age 54. She weeps and confesses, says she was one of the 9 who voted no. She never wanted Emma hurt. But after the vote, she stayed silent, helped dispose of evidence, took her share of the settlement money, and lived with guilt for 3 years. She names everyone involved, describes how they held Emma underwater together, how they made it look like drowning, how they all swore to never speak of it. The confessions multiply, each person trying to minimize their involvement, claiming they were pressured, afraid, following others. But the story becomes clear. On that September night, 37 people met at the river. Emma was brought there under false pretenses, told there was a town meeting about her project. When she arrived and saw the group she tried to run, they caught her, held a quick vote while she pleaded for her life. Then 28 of them participated in drowning her while 9 watched. Afterward, they disposed of her evidence, staged the scene, bribed the coroner, and returned to their normal lives. But Martinez still needs to find Thomas Reed. Under interrogation, several conspirators admit they knew Reed was getting too close to the truth. He had figured out the Emma Harrison murder. He was going to publish his article. They made another vote. This one unanimous. Reed had to disappear. They couldn't kill a federal journalist like they killed a teenager. It would bring too much attention. So they did something else. They paid him off, offered him $500,000 to go away. Forget the story. Start a new life somewhere else. Reed took the money and vanished. He chose the same silence they had chosen. Martinez tracks Reed through the money trail. He had accepted a wire transfer, closed his accounts, and fled to Mexico, where he couldn't be extradited for obstruction of justice. She finds him living in a beach town under a different name. When confronted, Reed breaks down, admits he betrayed his principles, betrayed Emma's memory. He says he told himself he would publish the story someday, but he knew he never would. The guilt has destroyed him. He's drinking heavily, unable to write, haunted by the decision to take blood money. Martinez arrests him on conspiracy charges when he agrees to return voluntarily. The trial becomes a national sensation. 37 residents of a small town conspiring to murder a teenage girl to protect their settlement money. It exposes a darker reality about small-town America. How communities can become corrupted, how ordinary people can participate in evil when money is involved, how silence can be just as deadly as violence. The prosecutors present overwhelming evidence, confessions, forensic proof, financial records. The defense attorneys try to argue that the residents were victims too, manipulated by the mining company. But the jury sees through it. These people chose money over a child's life. During victim impact statements, Emma's mother Susan takes the stand. She looks at the 37 defendants and says, "You knew my daughter. You watched her grow up. You came to her birthday parties. You praised her art. You told us what a wonderful girl she was. And then you drowned her in the river and let us believe it was an accident. You let us blame ourselves for not watching her more carefully. You let us grieve thinking it was a tragic accident when all along it was you, our neighbors, our friends, our community. You took our daughter and you took 3 years of truth from us. The verdicts come back. All 37 conspirators are found guilty. The 28 who actively participated in the drowning receive murder convictions, sentences ranging from 25 years to life depending on their level of involvement. The 9 who watched but didn't act receive conspiracy convictions with 10 to 15-year sentences. Thomas Reed pleads guilty to obstruction and receives 5 years plus a lifetime ban from journalism. The town of Riverside Falls is left devastated. Nearly half its adult population imprisoned, families destroyed, the community exposed as something corrupt and dark beneath its pleasant surface. Investigation into Riverside Mining Corporation continues. Federal prosecutors pursue charges against surviving executives who orchestrated the illegal dumping and subsequent cover-up. The EPA conducts a full environmental assessment of Riverside Falls. They find contamination levels far worse than anyone suspected. The water has been poisoned for 30 years. Residents who weren't part of the conspiracy were victims. They drank toxic water, developed cancers, lost family members, all while their neighbors who knew the truth stayed silent for money. The full scope of the tragedy is revealed. 2 crimes, one environmental, one human, both hidden by the same greed. Riverside Falls receives federal disaster designation. Cleanup begins. Residents are relocated while contaminated soil is removed. The river is treated. New water systems are installed. The town that once had 847 people shrinks to less than 300. Most families leave unable to live in a place with such dark history. The school closes. Businesses shut down. The community that killed to protect its secret is destroyed by the exposure of that secret. Emma Harrison's murder led to the unraveling of everything the conspirators tried to preserve. Their silence bought them nothing but guilt and prison. Agent Sarah Martinez returns to Riverside Falls 5 years later for the dedication of a memorial. It's a small park by the river where Emma died. Her parents planted a garden, placed a bench, installed a plaque that reads, Emma Harrison, 1979 to 1995. She told the truth. May we all have her courage. The town has changed. New families have moved in. People who don't carry the old secrets. The river runs clean now. David and Susan Harrison still live there. They say they couldn't leave. Emma is buried in the town cemetery. This is her home. Martinez reflects on the case, how an entire community chose collective evil, how one brave girl tried to stop it, and how the truth eventually came out. But at a cost. Justice served, but a community dead. Beneath the surface, darkness is always waiting to be exposed. Beneath the surface is closed. 37 people convicted for murdering a teenage girl to protect their conspiracy. An entire community destroyed by its own secrets. Every week we investigate cases where the guilty hide in plain sight. If you believe communities should protect their children, not their crimes, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, share with those who believe truth matters. Emma Harrison tried to expose corruption and paid with her life, but her courage eventually brought justice. This is Cold Case Chronicles. Unsolved, the investigation continues.